Penny. She was really good after her rework, like absolutely broken. But they nerfed her so much that she eventually fall back into the D tier, where she has been now for a very long time. Hyperchargers didn't help her out a lot, let's just say that as well. So today I'm gonna suggest a couple balancings that hopefully will bring Penny back into the meta, because this iconic character is really needing some buffs. So let's start off by a very basic tiny damage increase from 1960 to 2000, a 2% damage increase. It will make sense in a bit. Her first star power, the one that adds 2 extra coins, it's now baseline. Like, almost everyone uses this gadget, like why would you not use it? It's literally bonus damage and bonus charge rate at the same time. It just makes absolute sense to me. And on top of that, the mortar reload speed was reduced by 14% from 3.5 seconds to 3 seconds. This also means that you will always have one zone of fire. Like all of the bombs that the mortar shoots, they also leave fire on the ground for 3 seconds. That means that you always have one burning zone on the field, which is really helpful and obviously will make the mortar slightly stronger. But a tiny nerf to compensate all of these changes is that the coin's damage will be reduced from 75% down to 50%. I promise that this will make sense in a tiny bit. But for now, all of these changes should make Penny a lot better in 1v1s and should also help a lot with the mortar, and obviously will also make Penny at baseline a lot stronger as well. Now that we already covered the baseline, let's talk about the gadgets. So the first gadget definitely deserves a tiny nerf. Now it will have a 10-second health decay. So if I'm correct, for each second it will lose 224 health. If I am correct, I feel like that's right. So yeah, mainly to make so that the barrel cannot just stay there and be helpful for ages, because even if you don't really hit the barrel right at the start, you still get the barrel, which has a lot of HP still to tank you. So these should make the gadget focus to be more on countering tanks rather than just being a defensive thing, because that's where the second star power gets into play. Now, on the other hand, the second gadget will get a buff. I already saw a lot of ideas where you would just increase the damage or make the projectile speed a lot faster, but I have an idea that I feel like should be like honestly the best of them all. Like, now the second gadget, besides shooting all of the enemies, it will also shoot one cannonball to all of the allies. So everything that has an HP bar will now take one cannonball. I feel like the main idea with this gadget was to have some sort of area control, but the major problem is that it doesn't really offer that, because the cannon does not really have enough range to just be like crazy helpful. And on top of that, the second gadget is just not as good as the first one. So hopefully with this massive buff to the area control capability of this gadget, and at the same time the nerf to the first gadget, both gadgets should now be equally viable, and the second gadget should probably be a lot more helpful in strategic zone, for example. Now let's talk about star powers. So the first star power obviously was completely removed because now it's baseline. So the new first star power is called Pure Gold. Now the coin's damage gets increased by 100%. Imagine this like Chester's first star power. The first projectile gets double the damage, but it does not charge double the amount. The charge rate is still exactly the same, the only change is that your coins now deal more damage. I feel like this is honestly overall a pretty solid buff, because it will just allow Penny to be more defensive and obviously also shred through anyone that tries to stand close. Again, I feel like with the first gadget this will be obviously very good, and also in strategic zone it can also be very good. And finally, the second star power will get a tiny buff. Now, besides when you put the cannon, you get that explosion will now also happen when the mortar gets destroyed. Honestly, I feel like because of how aggressive the meta is right now, because of hypercharges, very aggressive gameplay in general, just one explosion is not really enough for Penny to survive, unless she uses the barrel, which, well played, can be really helpful. But other than that, you're pretty much dead still. So now, even if with the explosion they try to rush into, and if they accidentally kill the mortar, they will be pushed back once again, and obviously take like what, 2000 damage again? I don't exactly remember the damage, but yeah, double the explosion should definitely make this star power a lot better, especially in self-defense. And finally, I want to introduce a new mythic here. I saw this idea on one of my comments, and I honestly really liked it, and I actually remembered about it. Kinda crazy. So yeah, overheated bombs. Now the burning area will last twice as long. With the previous buff to the cannon reload speed, that means that instead of always having one burning area, you will actually have always two burning areas. I feel like once again this will be especially good in strategic zone. So yeah, I will definitely say that Penny's best game mode would for sure be strategic zone, but with the second star power I feel like she could be used pretty much anywhere. And now that the first star power, the more coins its baseline, you will always deal damage and be a lot easier to cycle the supers. So hopefully with all of these buffs, Penny will be back into the meta.